Hello everybody, this is Carl Russ coming to you from Mary Feaser Elementary School in Elkhart, Indiana, and I'm going to talk to you today about classroom management, disrespect, and defiance. So many times students get sent to the office because they're being disrespectful and defiant, and they're not listening, they're not following directions. So I've got some suggestions for you that you might be able to use to help you when these situations arise, and it's the 3 Ds. So we're going to talk about the first D in a minute, so get ready. Okay, here's the first of the 3 Ds I'm going to talk about, and this is deflect. So there's a Asian martial arts called Aikido that I used to study a long time when I was younger, and I had more flexible bones and stuff. But Aikido is based on the idea that I'm not going to try to overpower my opponent, but I'm going to deflect, I'm going to move aside. I'm going to do a lot of dodging and using their own force against them. Because a lot of times what you'll find, if somebody's angry and they're being disrespectful and defiant, they really want a confrontation. That's what they're looking for. And sometimes if you do not give that to them, they will kind of lose steam. So if a student is being defiant, and sometimes it might be something as simple as let's line up to go to lunch, or let's line up to go into the building from the playground, and a student is being defiant and disrespectful and not getting into the line. So one way to deflect that is, it's also a kind of ignoring, is you just don't even give them any energy. Just say, okay, I really need everybody to get in line. And I see teachers a lot use the positive side of this, which is, I really like how Mary and Susie and Johnny and Taekwon and everybody is standing in line. This is fantastic. And so we're just going to go on about our business. If possible, it's not always going to work, but sometimes you can deflect hostility, disrespect, and defiance. And also, one thing that I want you to think about is, how do you make that the student's problem? Because it really is their problem. You can't solve that for them. They're going to have to figure that out. So I'll be back with the second D in just 1 second. So take a little break, think about what you're going to do to deflect some of that hostility. Okay, so here we are with our second D when we're dealing with disrespectful, defiant students, and this is defer. So one thing that I want you to understand, give yourself permission. You don't have to win this battle at this very second. It does not have to be concluded right now. It can be deferred to later. And here's how you might use this technique in some cases. You say, I need you to get out your math book. And the kid says, nope, I'm not going to do it. Or they just don't do it. So you may say, excuse me, but I really need you to get out your math book. And they say no. And then you simply say to defer, you simply say, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and teach because everybody else is waiting. We'll talk about this later, or we'll talk about this at the beginning of recess, or we'll talk about this after school, or we'll talk about this when you're ready. We'll talk about this, and you just defer it. And again, it's kind of the dodging. If they're looking for a big confrontation with you, you're not going to give that to them. You're just going to say later. And then what you can do later is, when all their buddies aren't around watching, and they don't have anything to prove to anybody, you can simply discuss, you know, I really want you to be good at math. I needed you to look at your math book. Tell me what the problem is, why you couldn't get your math book out. In a private setting, or a semi-private setting away from other people. Because a lot of times when the confrontation is going on, this is good for deflect too. When the confrontation is going on, the rebel is looking for an audience. They want to put on a performance and a show, and they want you to be part of the show. So they want you to get angry and upset and red in the face, steam coming out your ears, and that's what they're looking for. So if you can remain calm, if you can have a kind of a monotonous tone of voice, I call it the zombie robot voice, they're not getting what they want out of the situation. So, and again, as much as you can put the problem on their shoulders, we'll talk about this later, and I want you to think about a plan to solve this problem. Okay, won't work all the time, but it's something you can try. And now we're almost ready for the last D, D number 3. Okay, ready for the third D. Don't take it personally. Usually, or in many cases, not all the time, but in many cases, this disrespectful, defiant behavior has nothing to do with you. And it may not have anything to do with the situation or the other students or anything. It may be something going on inside the student, something that happened at home, something that happened on the playground. So one thing that's easy to do when a student starts being disrespectful and calling you, maybe even calling you names or saying mean things about you, it's easy to get mad and get upset and be hurt, because if you think that student is directing that attack at you personally, it's easy to get upset. But getting upset usually is counterproductive. There's a few cases when maybe it works to raise your voice or to get mad, but they're very few and far between, and until you've been doing this a long time, it's kind of hard to tell. So I say the default for me is calm and state the positive, but don't take it personally. So I need you to sit down, I need you to be quiet, and obviously if they're disrupting your class, you may have to call for assistance, but remember, don't take it personally. It's probably not you, okay? There's something else going on. So here's my 3Ds, and at least you can try these. I'm not saying these are going to work 100% of the time, but it's something to try differently than just kicking them out of the room or sending them to the office. Deflect the energy. Maybe you can even redirect it back into something positive. Defer. Say, we'll talk about this later, and don't take it personally. So I'll have some more classroom management tips for you next time. Until then, have a fantastic day, and see you around the school.